Hello all and welcome to All Red. How will Arne Slot's Liverpool bounce back after a humiliating defeat to Forest at Anfield? This will undoubtedly be Slot's biggest test so far, and we will see the biggest changes in his starting 11 guaranteed. And I have some pretty bold predictions for that, especially our front three. So stay tuned to the end. You will not want to miss my hot takes. This is the channel that is all Liverpool all the time. It's all red. Please hit that like button and consider subscribing, as it massively, massively helps out the channel. Also, you can become an all red member and get all of my content before anyone else in the world. So please consider that. Link in the description. Liverpool traveling to Italia, getting out of town, which might be a good thing after losing to Forest at home. And we're going to look at who Slot is going to rely on to potentially get a result away from home in his first ever Champions League match with Liverpool. This is a big one. I do not want to understate this. This is a big match for Liverpool. It is one of their 8 matches in the league play, I guess you call it now. And Slot's going to need to come out firing, but he's going to need to make some changes, as they just played on Saturday, games on Tuesday, and they had to travel. So let's look at who starts at the back. It's going to be Alisson Becker. I think for the biggest matches, he's going to be the guy. We're going to start to see Quansah Kelleher come in for, I think, FA Cup and Carabao Cup matches, but it's going to be Alisson at the back. I think Konate starts as well, and you're going to see a trend here of, I think Slot was looking ahead during that Forest game, which probably was part of the downfall, in that I think you're going to see the players he subbed out against Forest are the players that he wanted to rely on in this game. I think there's a level of trust with Slot, Arne Slot, where if he doesn't trust a player, he's not just going to roll the dice and gamble and put them into the lineup. I think that's why we haven't seen Endo at all. I think that's why we haven't seen Gerald Quansah play since he was losing his jewels early on. And I think there's a handful of players that Arne Slot does not yet trust. Joe Gomez, Endo, Quansah, and, to some degree, I think that's the case for, some of our attacking players that he's tried to bring on later in games and hasn't been able to do. So Konate, I think, is going to start. I could see Quansah starting as well, but I think the fact that he took Konate out in, what was that, like the 60th minute, or I guess it was the 75th minute. I think that bodes well for Konate's chances to start. I don't think he would have taken him out had he not been planning to start him against AC Milan. I think Captain Virg has to stay in. The way that Virgil van Dijk plays really allows him to, I think, just play more matches. He's so calm and collected, doesn't exert a whole lot of energy. And, he didn't have a terrible game against Forest. I just, with Van Dijk, I feel like, say what you want about Jordan Henderson. If Liverpool were losing at home to Forest in the Henderson era, he would have been yelling, screaming at players. Like, it would have been unacceptable. I don't see that from Van Dijk. Obviously, he's a different player, different person, but I'd like to see a little bit more urgency, a little bit more fire from our captain when we get ourselves into those situations. So, anyway, all that aside, Van Dijk, I think, and Konate at the back, so no changes yet. All right, I think Conor Bradley is going to start at right back in this game. Trent Alexander-Arnold played the entire match against Forest. He moved up into the midfield, and this could be a case of maybe Slot's been reserving him by subbing Bradley into every single game thus far for Alexander-Arnold, and yet I feel like, he played a full game against Forest 2 days prior to the AC Milan match, and I could see Trent Alexander-Arnold being an impact sub and maybe coming into the midfield, which is a spoiler alert because I don't have him in our midfield for this match against AC Milan. So, Conor Bradley, I think, is potentially the 12th man for Arne Slot. I think he trusts him quite a bit. And again, it's that level of trust. Does Slot trust you as a player to bring you in? He's not just going to throw the random dice out and see if it works. He has to trust you first, and I think he really trusts Conor Bradley, and this is a great opportunity for Conor Bradley, particularly against an attacking duo or trio of AC Milans. We could see a lot of Christian Pulisic, who's got a lot of pace, and I think Conor Bradley would fare a little bit better against that. On the left, I think it's Robertson. Andy Robertson came off very early against Forest. 60th minute, I believe it was. I'm wrong again. 75th minute. So again, I think Robertson and Konate coming off in the 75th, just to reserve a little bit of legs. I don't know that that Arne Slot is the biggest fan of Tsimikas yet, and I don't. I would be surprised to see a player like Tsimikas coming in when Robertson's fit. At the same time, I could see Tsimikas absolutely starting this game, as Robertson, Andy Robertson playing a lot over the international break and played 75 minutes against Forest. So we'll see. But I think this is my starting back line. Let's jump into the midfield. Very, very tricky selections here. Very tricky. I am putting Alexis McAllister into the Gravenberg slot. Gravenberg played the entire match against Forest. Didn't play terrible, didn't play bad, had a decent game. Was probably one of the higher rated players in that game, but he played the whole match, and he played 180 minutes in the international break. He's played a lot of football in the last 2 weeks, and I expect him to rest, at least to not start against AC Milan. And I have Alexis McAllister here because he came off, this one I'm going to get right, he came off in the 60th minute when Conor Bradley came on and Trent Alexander-Arnold moved into the midfield. McAllister, played 2/3 of a game. I think, again, this was Arne Slot trying to preserve him for Tuesday. And I think McAllister is the guy, if there was another guy in that midfield who Arne Slot would trust to be in that Gravenberg role, it would be McAllister. Because this next player that I'm about to place in here, I think could do the job, but I don't think Slot fully trusts him yet. I think the fact that we saw Curtis Jones come in and play against Forest just shows, okay, he's ahead of Endo. Curtis Jones is ahead of Wataru Endo. I just don't think Slot trusts Endo at all, especially in this system and especially in this role. I don't think Slot wants to try that out with Endo in this role. I think it could be a potential disaster. And he would have to change his tactics completely because Endo can't be that Gravenberg guy. He's just not. He's a completely different player. Whereas McAllister, I think, could be that guy. Little passes in the back, finding those little slots of space, making turns, and distributing forward. I don't think McAllister is as good in that role as Gravenberg, but I don't know that Gravenberg can come in and play another 60, 70, 80, 90 minutes after just putting in 270 in the past 2 weeks. So Jones, McAllister, those are my two guys in the double pivot to start. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know. I'd really, really like to have another world-class midfielder in that double pivot because Jones and McAllister could be good. It could be. We'll see. Okay, let's jump into the front four. So the front three plus the 10 role. So I've got Luis Diaz taking Mo Salah's spot on the right wing. Mo Salah played the entire match against Forest. He has played a lot for Arne Slot. And I thought he was pretty poor against Forest. And yet Slot chose to keep him in. Salah, I've said this before, Mohamed Salah's fitness must be off the charts because Arne Slot has no problems keeping him in games and starting him in every game. So we could see Salah on the right wing. But I think the fact that Luis Diaz came off in the 61st minute, I think that, again, that was like a preservation tool for Slot to say, all right, Diaz, you're going to play for me in the midweek scramble against AC Milan. So I'm putting Diaz on the right, and I'm putting Diogo Jota in as my kind of number 10 role. This was probably the trickiest selection because, again, Dominic Szoboszlai played the entire match against Forest. He played 180 in the international break, 2 full games, 2 full matches for Hungary. And I don't know, man. Slot's this kind of guy that he's going to look at the numbers and he's not going to play you if you're not fit, or if he doesn't think that you're fully fit, or you're fatigued. So I'm putting Jota in at the 10. And then on the left, I'm bringing in Gakpo. Now, I want to see Federico Chiesa play. I just don't think he's ready. The fact that he wasn't even on the team sheet for Forest spoke volumes. Slot's not the type of guy to say, all right, random, get in there, Chiesa. Let's see if you can just do something weird and get a goal or two. I think that's why we haven't seen a whole lot of Darwin Nunez either, because Darwin's just an agent of chaos, and Slot wants things controlled. So I'd love to see Chiesa. I think a week ago I probably would have said, yeah, I think Chiesa's going to start against Milan. We had Aaron on the show. He made a great point that, bringing in Chiesa against Milan, he knows them, he's played against them, and obviously being back in his home country, it could be a good move. I just don't think he's fit. I don't think he's ready yet. And I don't think Slot is the type of manager to say, yep, just roll the dice, toss him in there. So maybe he's a sub. Maybe he's on the bench to start. I'd really like to see him come in and see what he can do, but I don't think he's ready. All right. Who is taking that number 9 position? Well, it is the aforementioned Darwin Nunez. Again, I don't think Slot has a lot of confidence in Darwin. But I don't think he has a whole lot of other options. So who else are you going to bring in to get you some goals in this match? Now, I do think that Arne Slot will look at historically. Darwin Nunez last year in the Europa League performed very well. He scored a lot of goals in the Europa League and seemed to have a different mindset, and maybe just had more confidence in these one-off European matches than thinking about the league, the English Premier League, different competitions too, different teams. So I do think history bodes well for a Darwin Nunez start against AC Milan in the Champions League. So I don't know, man. After this Forest match, I'm just the wind has been knocked out of my sails for sure. I think this is going to be a huge tell for what Arne Slot is able to do. How is he able to respond? How is he able to mitigate the front three not being able to finish or put anything together? This is going to be very, very interesting test for Arne Slot and his Liverpool team. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Am I crazy? Do you disagree? Who is your starting 11 for Liverpool versus AC Milan? We will see. We will see. And as always, we will say, you'll never walk alone, and up the Reds.
Yeah, of course.